Yes, we're going to make research fun tonight, aren't we, Jessica? So for all of you viewing, we're just going to have a conversation about what we know about healthy, happy, long-lasting relationships according to the research, the most prolific research thanks to the Gottman Institute. So when it comes to what predicts happily ever after versus disaster or divorce, thanks to our fearless researchers at the Gottman Institute, we actually know quite a bit. So I just want to introduce this whole way of presenting to everyone. If you have any questions, please feel free to chat. Also, if you're watching this later on a recording, you can also send us emails. We'll give you our information here, Stephanie at Counseling ATL or Jessica at Counseling ATL. I'm Stephanie Cook. I am the director here at Couples Counseling ATL, and I'm joined tonight by Jessica Hart, one of our most amazing, most experienced therapists here on staff, all 3-level Gottman trained. She's done many other trainings and has been one of our most helpful clinicians on the team for a very long time. So Jessica, thank you for joining me tonight.
It's a pleasure. I mean, I am excited to learn more about the research, as well as I love how you mentioned, Stephanie, how we're going to make it exciting. I know talking about research can be like, oh no, where's the caffeine? Where's the coffee? We're like,
snooze fest, right?
But we will try to make it as exciting. And I mean, hey, it's fun for us. So
yeah. Well, we're big nerds, but we love to have fun too. So we're going to have some fun talking about it tonight, and I hope you guys have fun too. But let's just start off with why we know what we know. There was one particular clinical psychologist, a researcher, more of a research psychologist by the name of Dr. John Gottman, who is still with us, but has been studying for decades. And he founded the Gottman Institute much later, but for a long time he was just a graduate student who wasn't very lucky at love and was really interested in the topic, had a lot of failed relationships that, he frequently will talk about if you've ever seen him talk live. And, he started in the 70s.
Like,
I know, they really
like, if you ever
I highly recommend
them.
Yeah, check out Dr. John Gottman if you don't know who he is. He's a great speaker, and for a researcher, he's not boring. So he's really interesting to listen to. And what you need to know is that they studied initially several thousand couples. CNN, I think jokingly called it the love lab, but that they really had a research lab that was more of an apartment where they began to just observe couples' interactions and really didn't know anything. Like how can we even begin to predict what will make a long-term happy relationship, or which couples will be miserable or which ones will split up. So they just began with a lot of observation, and they also were some of the first researchers of marriages and couples to study physiology, cortisol, stress levels in your blood, and your pulse oximeters, and your heart rate, and all kinds of other things, like how much you jiggle in your chair, so, and then facial expressions. They were just trying to study as much as possible about the individual as well as the couple dynamic. And eventually they were able to kind of separate the masters, the ones that really stayed together happily, and what we jokingly called the disasters, or the couples that stayed together miserably or ended up splitting up. And they just didn't have any theories. They didn't know what might predict that. So it just started out observational. So we'll tell you kind of more about the story of how this happened. But initially it just began as observational, and then they, in the 70s, and they began to just kind of follow up every few years, see if they're still together, survey them on how happy they were, and a bunch of other, kind of data. They'd interview them. But they initially began with the Love Lab, and they also would do some brief interviews. They would, we now do this in the Gottman method of couples therapy, but they would have couples come into the lab as well, not just the apartment lab, but they would have them come in and talk about two things. They'd have one conversation about, just events of the week, kind of, benign, like, how's your week been going? Get the couples to talk about, just have a regular conversation. And then they would, have a conversation about some sort of area of disagreement. So they would actually have the couples, again, with all the readings, with the heart rate monitors, with everything, talk about an area of disagreement, and then come back in again every few years and do the same thing. And they were able to, again, really successfully predict which couples would be satisfied or dissatisfied or would break up or divorce later on. So yes, so long story short, to answer your question, the research began in the 70s. There have been many research studies since. It's been replicated, duplicated, and they've the population of has been really culturally diverse, racially diverse, again with sexual orientations as well. Just huge sample size, and really highly accurate with their predictions.
I like how you mentioned it's very like longitudinal. So they just didn't study like one group of people for like, I don't know, 2 days. But it's like, it really adds to the research and adds that longitudinal and the whole wide range of couples, what helps them. And that's great insight. That helps for greater understanding. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're again thankful that this is really, done with the gold standards of research, not just small sample sizes, not just, self-report, it was actually, there were lots of physiological readings and third party sort of observation, things that are typically not done in studying individuals, let alone couples. Yeah. So this was also pretty revolutionary in that it was studying emotions, and not just studying, again, self-report, like, oh, I'm happy or I'm sad in this relationship, but coding facial expressions, having scientists in the other room, kind of measure not just, what people were reporting, but also what they were observing.